Welcome to the Business Spotlight, where today the spotlight is shining on Emily from Smart Choice Tutors, making sure I get that right. Welcome, Emily, to the Business Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. So to start with, tell us a little bit more about what you do and what your company does.
So I am a full-time primary school teacher by trade. I absolutely love it. I currently teach a year 2 class, and I've always kind of been in year 1 or year 2. But alongside that, a couple of years ago now, I started tutoring myself independently, just kind of a bit of extra pocket money to begin with. But then the business has kind of spiraled and really expanded, which is amazing. So I now have that as an agency on the side as well. As it's grown, my partner now kind of does the finance and admin side of the business, and we now have lots more tutors kind of working for us, so we're able to reach many more families. Nice. But yeah, I still teach full time, so I'm very busy.
I was going to say, spinning a lot of plates. So how long has the business been running for?
4 years, coming up in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was running a business something that you'd always thought you'd do when you were a child?
Absolutely not. It's not something that would come naturally to me, to be honest.
Okay.
My kind of focus is on the teaching, and I would never kind of see myself as a business owner. I'd never kind of anticipated that would have happened. But I think it just goes to show that anyone can do it. And actually, if you're passionate about something and you have that as kind of the heart of everything else, you know, the business will take off. And I think that's something that's really happened with us, because I love teaching and I loved being with the children. That's kind of been the core of it all, and it's kind of just grown through that.
I love that. Been in business for 4 years, so that means you've got a bit of experience by now. What have been some, and especially having a business on top of a full-time job, what have been some of the key challenges that you've had to overcome?
I think for me, being young was always something that I really worried about. Nice. So it hasn't actually been a challenge, but it's kind of more my mindset about being young. So I'm still only 25. I kind of have to remind myself how young I am when I'm going to all these business networking events and things. Nice. But when I first started teaching, it was actually an interview that I had for a new role. And the head teacher kind of said to me, do you not think you're too young to be a teacher? You won't be able to relate to some parents. And that kind of, you know, completely knocked my confidence. But this was when I was 20. It actually gave me such motivation that actually, no, I am young, but I'm going to be amazing. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to be the best teacher I can be. And that's kind of been ammunition for me to kind of grow my business and be the best teacher I can. But it always kind of has been a thought at the back of my head, kind of up until recently. And then it was this year, actually in November, I was a finalist for Young Entrepreneur of the Year in Thames Valley. So that kind of came full circle. And I was like, actually, you told me I was too young, but look what I can do. And it's just kind of, been that motivation.
Oh, I absolutely love that one. And it's one I totally understand. I was in a similar position. So I absolutely love that one. And well done to use that as fuel instead of
exactly
letting that knock you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Any other challenges that you've had as a business?
Yeah, I think so obviously I started just myself, tutoring, you know, family, friends, and then clients, but they kind of were very close to me. And I think as the business has grown, I find it really tricky kind of taking that step back, because obviously working full time as well, and I love teaching, I don't want to stop that. I've kind of had to reevaluate kind of my position in the business and kind of realize I can't do it all. And if I did try to do it all, it wouldn't be as successful as it is. So actually for me, the main challenge recently has been trying to step back and trusting other people with something that is like my baby. You know, I absolutely love business. I'm so protective over it. So that's been something I've really kind of learned to have to do. And it's something that I'm still quite struggling with, because I still want to do everything and I still want to be involved as much as I can. But it's kind of using other people's strengths as well, and just kind of realizing that I can't do it all.
Love that one. So on the flip side of this, what have been some of the wins?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the fact that, you know, the business has really taken off. We're supporting lots of different children across the country. And also what I really like is that we are supporting tutors as well. There are teachers that kind of come to us, they are just wanting a bit of extra pocket money, but some of them now just tutor, and they've kind of been able to get out of the classroom if that's what they want to do. And some of these teachers have been friends of ours that have kind of come to us and asked for help. It's really rewarding to see kind of them growing in confidence as well, and seeing how amazing tutoring is. And personally as well, we recently bought our first house, and that's something that we wouldn't be able to do without the business. So that's definitely a win I'll take from that as well.
Nice, some good ones there. Do you, as you go through the year, both for the tutors and for the children, or the pupils that you, because I might imagine that they're not all children necessarily?
No, some are adult learners as well. Yeah.
How do you celebrate the wins with them?
I think it's very personal. So obviously you have gradings and kind of exams at the end of the year, and individual tutors will kind of celebrate the successes of them getting an A star, or for some students it might be getting a C in maths and things like that. So it's kind of knowing our students personally and celebrating the small wins along the way as well, and just realizing that actually some students aren't aiming for an A star, they're aiming for that C, and they really need that C or to pass English. So actually it's just celebrating kind of along the way all the mock results, and growing in confidence as well. That's one thing that we see a huge amount of, children being more willing to put their hands up in class and things like that. So it's not looking at those grades, it's kind of thinking of the person as a whole and what wins they're getting along the way.
I love that one. What have been some of your key learnings since you've been running the business? And that could be either personal or business wise, but what stands out when you look back over the last 4 years?
I think for me, I had a conversation recently with another tutor, and actually kind of as we've grown to a bigger agency, it's making me realize more how I actually really want the core values of the company to stay the same. So I know other tutors kind of have tried to tell me, oh, you need to, as you expand, you can't keep seeing the children as like an individual. They kind of become numbers or just names. And actually for me, that's something that, we've really had to try and make sure we still know all of our families personally and the children personally. And whilst, yes, it's amazing to expand and get more tutors on board, more children on board, we still want to know those children and celebrate their wins and their successes, because that's why we're doing it. We're doing it because we love the children, we love the relationships. So I think it's a really hard balancing act as you get bigger and you step away from the business a bit more, to still kind of have that relationship and people to know me as well personally.
Yeah, and I guess a good one with that is looking outside the box, right? Because when people says, or someone says you can't do this, it sometimes makes you think, actually I can't do that in whatever way has been tried already, but what's a different way of doing it potentially?
Exactly. And it's like, when I was told I could potentially be too young, I was like, nope, I'm going to do it and watch me. So again, it's like that, it's kind of, having a challenge and overcoming it and thinking, actually, how can I get around it, basically?
Yeah, nice. Love that. As a business owner, what still keeps you awake at night?
I think it's like I kind of said about having that trust in other people. That isn't something that comes naturally to me. I am quite trusting, but I still want to know exactly what's going on. I'm really not very good at switching off. So if there's emails sat in my inbox, whether it's my teaching inbox or my tutoring one, I just want them to be sorted then and there. And that's why it's really good actually working with my partner, Sam, because he kind of does all the admin side. He's a lot more laid back than I am. And kind of if an issue arises, I'm kind of like, oh no, we need to sort it straight away. We need to, fix it and please them and almost pander to them and get it all sorted out. Whereas he's a little bit more, no, slow down, take it rationally, think about our next steps and what's actually going to work, rather than me being really quick to try and make a decision. So it's really helpful, actually. People think it's quite hard working with your partner, but for us, it's actually really good because we're both complete opposites. And he's more kind of financial background. He works in insurance full time, whereas I'm obviously childcare. So it just really works well together. So luckily, if I am up worrying about something, he's always there, so I can kind of have a sounding board as well. But it is normally about, email sitting in the inbox or something's not gone quite right that day. The littlest things, but I'm a bit of a worrier and overthinker, so it does keep me up.
Now it sounds like you guys have got a really nice balance between you, which is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, balance each other out.
Yeah, nice one. So we've kind of looked at where the business is right now. Let's now look ahead a little bit. And what do you think, what do you see happening in your industry in the next 5 years?
That's a really interesting one, because kind of we started the business just before COVID hit. So we've been established about a year or so before COVID.
Okay.
And we kind of worried. We thought, actually, maybe we've seen this growth because of COVID and the fact that, you know, children are at home learning, parents are needing that extra support. But actually, since things have become a little bit more normal again, the tuition industry is just growing from strength to strength. I was looking at some facts this morning, and it said, this was from the National Tutors Association, it was saying that 25% of students actually have tutors or have had tutors in their kind of school history. And it just really makes you think. And actually, Sam and I were talking about it the other day. When I was a child, I really struggled in school and primary. And again, that's why I wanted to become a teacher. So I had a tutor as well, which really helped me.
Yeah.
And Sam's the same. So he had a tutor for his 11 plus. And we've both come from very different backgrounds, different sides of the country. But we both had tutors. So it isn't something that's a new concept. I think now it's just kind of more publicised. And sometimes parents are quite anxious about telling others that they have a tutor, because they don't want the kind of judgment and, you know, thinking that their child's struggling. Whereas that's really changed since COVID, which is a really good thing. Because actually, you know, if a child is struggling, we want to support them. And I know that when I had my tutor when I was younger, it was amazing. You know, I went from being really lacking in confidence, struggling with maths in particular. And then I kind of had that tutor for a couple of years, and then I loved it. And, you know, I did well in GCSEs, A levels. I'm now a tutor myself and a teacher. So I think the industry is kind of going from strength to strength.
Nice.
The difficulty is, I find it really interesting that it's an unregulated industry as well. So there isn't like a national qualification or anything. And it's really concerning to me that a lot of tutors don't get asked for DBS checks by parents.
Oh, wow.
And I know that actually, as a business owner myself, when I first started, parents just wouldn't ask for DBS checks. So obviously we do checks on all of our tutors.
Of course.
But I think it would be really lovely to kind of see the profession being regulated more in the future, because that's something that really concerns me, actually, kind of the fact that some tutors are out there that don't have the qualifications and may not even have the DBS check. So hopefully things will start to change in the next couple of years towards that as well.
So I guess for you that is not necessarily a challenge, because obviously you've got all the boxes ticked on that one, but actually potentially a great opportunity to do some education towards the general public, that those are, and whether they use you and your agency or someone else's, but actually a general piece of education around, this is something you need to think about when you bring in a tutor.
Definitely, because it's kind of the safety around it as well, not just having the credentials to teach, it's the safety of the children, because especially with tutoring moving online a little bit more, you know, there's tutors all over the country that kind of have access to our children and can market to our children and our families. And actually, it just makes it more relevant, the fact that they do need a qualification of some sort and DBS as well. And that's kind of why I think parents are going for agencies like ourselves, because they trust us, they know that we do all the checks, and actually it is kind of a safety net because all those structures are in place already. Love that.
Well, what kind of other challenges are you potentially thinking, gosh, as a business, this is what I need to be aware of in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of definitely creeping up, because obviously the market is really saturated at the moment. There's so many tutors out there, which is amazing, because obviously parents kind of have free rein to go for whatever kind of tutor they want. But it's just kind of making sure that we're still really established, that our marketing is amazing, and word of mouth as well is so important. So it's just making sure that we kind of keep up the momentum with that as well.
Okay. What or who do you find inspiring? Who do you look up to?
I think for me, I love listening to podcasts. So I quite often find myself listening to Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO. That's one of my absolute favourites. And I think for me, especially because he was such a young entrepreneur as well, and he had a huge success whilst he was still young, that was something I really tapped into, especially when I was struggling with being insecure about being young. I mean, I used to worry that parents would ask me when I first went to their house to tutor, like, are you old enough to teach? That kind of thing. So I've really enjoyed listening to his podcasts.
Nice.
And also just things like watching Dragon's Den. I absolutely love that. The Apprentice, just kind of watching those kind of shows as well. And even like to marketing and, networking with small business owners locally as well. There are so many groups in Berkshire, especially, which are amazing to go to, because actually, looking at Stephen Bartlett's amazing because he is incredible, but that is not aspirational for me at the moment because it's miles away. So actually going to these networking groups and meeting other women, other professionals that kind of have these small businesses, they're so inspiring as well, and you always learn something new going to them as well.
Yeah, I love that one. Absolutely love that one. So, Stephen Bartlett is aspirational, which is fabulous. But what's your vision for the next 5 years? Like, what do you still want to achieve in the next 5 years?
I find that really tricky. It's something that I'm not very good at forward thinking and kind of being aspirational. So whilst I'm kind of always looking for what's next in the business in really small steps, looking kind of to the bigger picture, I find really hard. So if you'd have told me literally probably 18 months ago that I'd be sat here talking to you and, have this many tutors on board, I wouldn't have believed it at all. So kind of that imposter syndrome creeps in. So I'd really love for the business to kind of start branching out into different counties, taking on more tutors, working with more families. But it's tricky for me as well because professionally I'm doing really well in my teaching career. So it's kind of trying to get that balance as well between the business and my professional life too. But yeah, I'd love to kind of expand into different counties and take on kind of create opportunities for different people to join our team as well. We're currently looking for a virtual assistant, which will be really exciting and hopefully free me up a little bit more too. So just hopefully the business can grow, provide more opportunities and support more families as well.
Okay. So can I safely assume from that answer that you don't have a plan in place of what the next 5 years look like for you?
No, and actually I think that's really liberating as well because
interesting.
Yeah, I quite like not having to think too far in advance as well because I am so young still. I think if I had have thought really far in advance when I first started the business, I think I kind of have exceeded what I would have expected anyway. So actually by not limiting myself and kind of thinking outside the box, that kind of really helps me to think, actually, I can do anything. It's amazing to think that, the next 5 years, the business could look completely different.
Yeah.
And it's kind of saying yes to every opportunity and just thinking creatively as well within that.
So what about you? So obviously you talked about the business and the things you like for the business, but what about you? Like, what do you personally still want to achieve in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I'm getting married next year, which I'm really excited about. Yeah. So that's taking up a lot of my headspace at the moment.
Can imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Within the next 5 years, hopefully start a family and things as well. So that would be a whole new challenge too. Sam and I also have quite a non-traditional dynamic in that kind of when we have a family, it'd be likely that he would do a lot of the paternity leave because I'm kind of, I don't know, I just love working. And I think he's more kind of the homebody. When I go out tutoring in the evenings, he cooks, he cleans, he does all the kind of traditionally female roles. So actually for us, it would look very, very different. And I think that's what I kind of love so much about having this business as well, is that we are kind of breaking traditional stereotypes too, in that, it's all girl power and, it's amazing that I'm a woman in business, but I do have this really supportive partner that does cook, clean, whilst I'm able to focus on the business. So potentially start a family in the next 5 years or so.
And that adds extra babies to the baby you already have.
Yeah, exactly.
Now.
That'll be new priorities. It'll be really interesting to see what would happen with that as well.
Yeah, love that. Question I don't often ask, but I kind of feel it's relevant for you and what you do. Looking back on your school career now and the fact that you're running a business, what are the topics that you had at school that either you say, gosh, these have really helped me with my business right now? Or actually, what topics should we be teaching kids in schools to be able to become great business owners in the future?
That is really interesting. So I think the school kind of system, they're missing so much in terms of just things like, you know, paying tax and kind of corporation fees and all that kind of, you know, meaty content that actually a lot of children will go on to experience in some way. And even if they don't go on to become a business owner, their partner might, or their child might, and it's just kind of having that knowledge as well. I mean, I can safely say that if I didn't have this business, I would have gone through life not really thinking about tax because it just came off my payslip, not really thinking about, you know, profit and you know, net profit and turnover and all those things. And it's just so important because it's kind of basic economics, isn't it? It's how everything works and the country runs, and actually it's so important. And I also think kind of we should be teaching in schools how to support local businesses and shopping locally as well, because it's so important that children actually realise, you know, how important these businesses are. So going to an independent coffee shop rather than going to the big ones, and just, you know, there's so much work we could be doing in secondary schools. I think in primary it's really important as well. And, you know, I love talking to the children about local businesses and supporting them when we can on school trips and things like that. But I think secondary schools and the secondary curriculum in particular, there needs to be some movement there, because it's not equipping us, you know, for business owners of the future.
I absolutely love that answer. That's such a great one. And I've asked this question before on a previous sort of podcast series, and most people have said either drama was one that they found useful for being a business owner now, and then it's that whole piece around what you were saying around the financial, the actual practical financial understanding. It's not maths, but it's that business language that they feel is massively missing, in that common sense around finance
area, isn't it? I mean, I know my brother, for example, he did business studies, and I think that's really helped him, and he's kind of gone into the business world. But that's not something that's kind of statutory, and it's not something we have to kind of teach, whereas actually it should be something that we teach, even if it's just for like 30 minutes a week or something, or a little course. It's so important that we kind of give children the skills to grow up and actually have the experience and the knowledge to do what they want to do, and, you know, start a business if they want to.
Love that. What advice would you give to your younger self if you had the opportunity to go back? What would you tell Emily, normally I'd say age 18, but for you that's not that long ago, so maybe a little bit further back?
I think I would tell myself just to trust the process. I don't have to do it all straight away, and, you know, there will be times where, you know, it seems like it's the end of the world and something really small's gone wrong, but actually it all evens out. So for example, you know, when we first started the business, if there was a tutor and a child that didn't particularly gel, and that does happen because it's all about relationships. And actually I think about some of the teachers I had when I was younger, they weren't necessarily the right teacher for me. They were still a really good teacher. But, you know, when I first started the business and when I was younger, it felt like the end of the world if it wasn't quite the right match. But it's kind of trusting that process and thinking, actually, okay, it's not the right match. We can swap them and find someone that's, you know, more suitable for them. So it's definitely trusting the process. And then also just about being young, I think it's seeing my youthfulness as a positive rather than something to be worried about. Actually, I think I'm really proud of myself in that I've achieved a lot at a young age. It shouldn't be a negative thing, and it isn't a negative thing, even though to me it was something that I was insecure about. And I think I'm really hopeful that, you know, starting my business young and going through all the motions, that I'll hopefully inspire other young business owners to kind of not be worried about their age, and actually it's something that's really powerful.
Absolutely love that. What a great answer. Fantastic. Last question. What would you say to anybody either thinking about starting a business or, you know, is on that cusp of starting? What would your top 2 pieces of advice be?
I think the first one, actually it's going to be really conflicting, but the first one would be saying yes to as much as you can, because actually that's the kind of way that you open doors and you get these opportunities. And like I said, if when we started, if you told me even a year ago that I'd be sat down with you doing a podcast on Zoom, I'd be terrified, and I was really nervous before even doing this today. So it's making sure that you do push yourself, challenge yourself, say yes to the opportunities. But then also the second piece would be to say no and not be afraid of saying no when things might get too much, or it's something that, you know, won't add value to your life. So it's kind of getting that really good balance of taking all the opportunities and challenging yourself, but equally knowing when, you know, if it's not going to benefit you, don't feel like you have to say yes.
Absolutely love that. What a great answer to end with. And actually, there was no need for nerves at all, because it's been fantastic. So well done, and thank you very much, Emily, for your time and for sharing your story with us. I look forward to hearing how you continue to grow the business in the next couple of years. The link to Emily's business and to connect with her on LinkedIn will be in the comment section below, so go and have a look. Thank you very much for watching this Business Spotlight. Until next time.